So, right in front of me, I have a model of the eye. Now, if you're looking at an eye in a body, first thing you're going to notice is there's a layer over it. If you were to touch your eye, don't touch your eye. But if you were to touch your eye, the first thing you'd encounter is a layer called the cornea. Now, the cornea is a protective layer that is very sensitive to drying out. That's why we blink. And that's why we have this little orange gland right here. This is called our lacrimal gland, and this provides tears and also provides solutions that way we can go and lubricate our eye. That's why we blink. Next thing you're going to notice is you're going to notice a little ring around here. Now, this is that colored ring around your eye. This is actually a muscle. We call this the iris. I-R-I-S. This is the iris. Now it's colorful. What color are your eyes? That's determined by this iris. Now, this hole in the eye is called our pupil. That's that little black part of your eye. It's not really a structure, it's more like a hole. In fact, it is a hole. Now, your eye is kept safe in your head by a layer of fat around it, which we can actually see a representative right here on this model. Now, let's take a look at what's inside the eye. All right. Now, on top of the eye, we're going to see this layer. We're going to talk about this layer in just a moment. Once we take it off, we have this section here. If you look, now, sitting right here, allowing us to focus light, because the eye is like a very complex camera. We have this. This is called our lens, just like the lens on a camera. And this focuses that light into our eye so that way we can see. Okay, so let's put this lens over here for right now. Now, we have this area as well. This has a jelly, goopy-like substance that we call our vitreous humor. It's not very funny, to be honest, but it's called our vitreous humor because it's this gel, goopy-like structure. Now let's look at what's inside this posterior cavity with all the vitreous humor. Okay, let's take that off. And now what you can see is this. This is where we actually do see. This is what we call the retina. Now the retina has special cells that we call rods and cones that allow us to detect color and patterns. Now, we send all of these signals to the brain through this nerve back here. We call this our optic nerve. It's the nerve for the eye. We have this little dot right over here. This is our fovea centralis. This is that little center dot that allows us to focus on things when we're looking at something. So if you're reading a book and you're looking at the words, you're gonna use this fovea centralis, this little yellow dot right here, to go into focus in on those words on that page. Now you can also see things around what you're just focusing on, which is why all of this is covered in that retinal tissue. Now, fun fact for you, this optic nerve, as you see, comes out in this optic disc, that little hole right there. Now, we actually can't see anything in that hole. Isn't that crazy? It's a blind spot. In fact, we actually sometimes call that our blind spot. Now, cool thing is we can do some special tricks with this blind spot. I'll show you in just a minute. We're gonna put this back right over here. Okay, and we're gonna put all this back together. We put this over here. There we are. Now we're gonna put our eye away. Now, next thing we're gonna learn about for our senses, we're gonna learn about the ear. This is what your ear looks like on the inside. So first thing we have is we have the outside part of the ear. This is the part that's made out of a lot of cartilage, and we can wiggle this. See? We can go and we can bend this, we can twist it, and it'll pop right back into shape because it's got all of that cartilage. We call this outside part the auricle or the pinna. That's that outside part. Now, we have another part that we call the ear canal. If you were to maybe scratch an itch inside your ear, you're actually touching a little bit into this ear canal. But we don't want to go too far. Why? Because there's this thing here called a tympanic membrane. Now, we sometimes call the tympanic membrane the eardrum. Why? Because it's like the soft membrane part on a drum. Now, this is going to pick up pressure waves through the air, which we call sounds. They're going to hit this tympanic membrane, and they're going to press on this special bone. I'll show you this bone in just a minute. But we have some tiny little bones that will go and will press over here onto this little window right over here. Now, this window leads to this snail shell looking thing right over here. Let me show it to you. Do you see the snail shell? There's their tympanic membrane. So if our tympanic membrane went away, we have this snail shell right over here. Now, this is where our sounds are actually being processed. This is called the cochlea. That's Latin for shell. So this goes and provides us our sense of hearing, and it sends it to the brain through this special nerve. Now, that's not the only thing the ear does. The ear has another special sensation that it does as well. How? Well, we have these little arches over here. Now, these are filled with fluid. These are what we call our semicircular canals. These special arches allow us to feel different directions. So when you tilt your head forward, your brain is going to know that you are tilting forward. Why? Because our semicircular canals are filled with fluid, and we sense when that fluid moves. Okay? We're actually going to try this for ourselves at home here, or rather at school. But what we're going to do is we are going to see how these semicircular canals work and how they work with vision to give us input on our environment. Now, sometimes we can actually fool these. I'll show you how in a minute. But let me show you those bones.